Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a really urgent situation, the Iran-Israel conflict. It's now heading into its second week, escalating pretty rapidly. We're going to look at the direct fighting, yes, but also, critically, how the big global players are getting drawn in. Our goal here is simple: cut through all the noise and give you a fast, solid understanding of what's really going on.
Exactly. This isn't just some, local skirmish. It's become this complex global chessboard. The moves being made now, they could reshape influence far beyond the Middle East.
Yeah.
We've pulled together the key insights from our sources so you can really get a handle on the stakes.
Okay, let's start with the conflict itself. Sources are calling Israel's actions Operation Rising Lion. It involves ongoing strikes for over a week now, targeting Iran's nuclear facilities and military sites. The numbers are quite grim. Over 600 reported killed in Iran, and that includes some high-level IRGC commanders and nuclear scientists.
hmm
And on the Israeli side, tragically, at least 24 civilian deaths. It really brings home the human cost.
And Iran hasn't just sat back. Tehran's responded with barrages of ballistic missiles and drones. They're aiming at both military targets and, worryingly, civilian areas in Israel. The big one everyone's talking about is the strike on Soroka Hospital in Beersheba. Reports say around 80 people were injured there.
Wow, 80 people.
Yeah, and predictably, that led to immediate vows from Israel that they will retaliate. It just shows how this cycle keeps spinning faster and faster.
That hospital strike specifically,
Yeah.
what are the sources saying about its immediate impact? Does it change the calculation beyond just, promising revenge?
Well, it fundamentally raises the stakes regarding civilian lives, doesn't it? It broadens the conflict beyond just military tit for tat.
Yeah.
It makes any Israeli counter-response much trickier to sort of contain. It could potentially push them into a more direct, maybe even full-scale confrontation, maybe one neither side initially planned for.
And this is where it spills over. This isn't happening in a vacuum. The U.S. is obviously a key player here. President Trump's administration is weighing some heavy options. We're talking potential strikes on Iran's nuclear program. Now, they've announced this 2-week window for diplomacy, but at the same time, well, U.S. fighter jets, a carrier group, they're moving into position in the region. It's a bit of a mixed signal.
It really is. And it's not just the U.S. watching closely. Look at Russia. The Kremlin's put out warnings cautioning against the U.S. or Israel widening this. They're talking about the risk of all-out war.
Yeah.
Interestingly, Russia says its treaty with Iran doesn't commit them militarily, but they have offered to mediate talks.
Mediation. But does that come with strings attached for Russia?
You have to assume so, right? I mean, strategically, if Western attention is glued to Iran and Israel, that definitely takes some heat off Russia concerning, say, Ukraine. It gives Moscow, well, some breathing room. It eases international pressure, maybe lets them regroup or shift resources. It's classic geopolitics.
So their offer to mediate, it's maybe helpful, but also serves their own interests pretty clearly.
I think that's fair to say. Diplomacy in these situations is rarely, completely pure. Every major power is playing their own game, calculating their advantage.
And China's in the mix too, right?
Absolutely. Beijing's stance mirrors Moscow's in some ways. They're condemning the escalation, calling for restraint, pushing the diplomatic track. And apparently, Iran has specifically asked for China to be involved in any negotiations that happen.
That's interesting. Why China specifically?
Well, Beijing's push for diplomacy isn't just about peace, it's also strategic. It bolsters their image as a major, responsible global power. Plus, being involved potentially sets them up for economic or political influence down the road, depending on how things shake out. But what's fascinating is that even with missiles flying, there are serious diplomatic efforts happening. European foreign ministers are meeting with Iranian officials in Geneva, trying to restart nuclear talks.
And there are reports of fresh U.S.-Iran talks too.
That's right. So multiple tracks are being pursued, even as the military situation looks bleak.
Okay, beyond the bombs and the backroom talks, what about the wider world, the economic side?
Yeah, that's already being felt. Oil markets are nervous, definitely jittery, and there's growing worry about the Strait of Hormuz. It's such a vital channel for global oil shipments. Any disruption there? Well, the ripple effects globally could be huge.
So this really isn't just a regional problem. It has the potential to affect energy prices, shipping, and maybe even global stability more broadly.
Exactly. Goes back to that chessboard idea. The U.S. has a huge decision to make in the next couple of weeks. They could pour fuel on the fire or try to stamp it out. Russia, meanwhile, benefits from the West being distracted. China positions itself as the calm diplomat, the balancer. These next 2 weeks feel absolutely critical. Make or break for diplomacy, It could head off a wider war, or, well, it could fail spectacularly.
It feels like everyone's walking on a razor's edge.
Precisely. Which does raise a pretty big question as we wrap up.
Given how tangled this all is, the fighting, the global powers, the potential economic fallout, what are the unforeseen consequences we should be thinking about? Whether there's a big intervention or even if everyone tries to stay out, what could the long-term ripple effects be on the global order itself? Something to definitely ponder, especially in this multipolar world we're living in.